School was over. Finally. I packed my bag, eager to escape the stuffy classroom. I hurried down the hallway, my footsteps echoing. Out the heavy oak doors I went into the sunshine. I took a deep breath of the fresh air. It was the first day of summer vacation. I didn't have to think about school for 2 whole months. I was free. I usually walked home with my friends, but not today. They had all made plans, excited to start their summer adventures. I didn't mind at all. I was happy to have some time alone to think. I started down the familiar street. It was eerily quiet, almost haunting. No children played on the sidewalks, no cars drove by. The silence was unsettling, almost deafening. I walked a little faster. I felt a shiver run down my spine, even though the sun was warm. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees. It sounded like whispering. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I glanced over my shoulder, feeling a chill run down my spine. The night was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that makes you hyper-aware of every little sound. My footsteps echoed on the pavement, and I could hear the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. It was as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, a fleeting shadow, barely there, but enough to make my heart skip a beat. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew something was off. A dark figure lurking in the shadows of a tall oak tree. It stood there, motionless, almost blending into the darkness. I squinted, trying to get a better look, but the figure remained elusive, like a ghost haunting the night. The more I stared, the more uncertain I became of what I was seeing. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. One moment it was there, the next it had vanished into the night. I blinked, wondering if I had imagined the whole thing, but the lingering sense of unease told me otherwise. Something was out there, watching me. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, urging me to run, to get away from whatever was out there. But my legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot by fear. I quickened my pace, my backpack feeling suddenly heavy on my shoulders. Every step felt like a struggle, as if the weight of the night was pressing down on me. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadowy figure following me. But the path behind me remained empty, save for the eerie shadows cast by the dim streetlights. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, that my mind was playing games with me, turning ordinary shadows into sinister shapes. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, the fear gnawed at me, refusing to be dismissed. But I couldn't be sure. The night was full of uncertainties, and my mind was racing with possibilities. What if there really was something out there? What if I wasn't alone? The questions swirled in my head, feeding my anxiety and making every shadow seem more menacing.
And so John's peaceful walk home took a dark turn, haunted by shadows and whispers in the wind. The once familiar path now seemed like a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. Every rustle of leaves, every flicker of light felt like a warning, a sign that something was amiss. John couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that the shadows were closing in on him. His mind raced with thoughts of what could be lurking in the darkness, and he quickened his pace, desperate to reach the safety of his home. But the night had other plans, and the shadows continued to follow him, a constant reminder that sometimes the things we fear the most are the ones we can't see.
The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. The air grew cooler, and the wind howled like a hungry wolf. I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I was alone. I wished I had taken the bus today. I wished I had stayed with my friends. I wished I had never left school, but it was too late now. My street was just up ahead, but to get there, I had to pass an alleyway. It was dark and narrow, the entrance shrouded in shadows. I hesitated. I could feel my palms start to sweat. I took a deep breath and plunged into the darkness. The air grew colder. The stench of garbage filled my nostrils. The sounds of the city faded behind me. Suddenly he heard a noise, a soft scraping sound, like claws on pavement. It was coming from the end of the alley.
John froze, his heart pounding in his ears.
He slowly turned to face his pursuer. His blood ran cold.
Standing in the dim light of the street lamp was a tall, shadowy figure. Its eyes glowed an eerie red.
John didn't wait to see what it was. He didn't scream. He just ran. The night was eerily silent, save for the sound of his own footsteps echoing off the pavement. The streetlights cast long, ominous shadows that seemed to reach out and grab at him as he sprinted past. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat a reminder of the fear that propelled him forward. He could feel the cold night air biting at his skin, but he didn't dare slow down. He had to get away, had to find safety. He ran faster than he had ever run before, his backpack bouncing against his spine. The weight of the bag seemed to grow heavier with each step, but he couldn't stop. He could hear his own ragged breathing, the sound of his sneakers slapping against the pavement, and the distant hum of the city that felt a world away. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to stop, to rest, but he pushed on. The fear was a relentless force driving him forward, refusing to let him give in to exhaustion. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of his front door. The familiar sight of his home brought a fleeting sense of relief, but he knew he wasn't safe yet. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see a shadowy figure closing in on him. The street was empty, but the fear lingered, gnawing at the edges of his mind. He had to get inside, had to lock the door and put a barrier between himself and whatever was out there. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking. The adrenaline coursing through his veins made it difficult to steady his grip. Each second felt like an eternity as he struggled to fit the key into the lock. His mind raced with thoughts of what might happen if he couldn't get the door open in time. The fear was almost paralyzing, but he forced himself to focus, to keep trying. He finally managed to unlock the door and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind him. The sound of the door closing echoed through the empty house, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded outside. He leaned against the door, his body trembling with a mix of fear and relief. The silence of the house was almost deafening, but it was a welcome change from the terror of the night. He leaned against the door, gasping for breath. His lungs burned, and his legs felt like they might give out at any moment. But he was safe, at least for now. He closed his eyes, trying to calm his racing heart and steady his breathing. The events of the night played over and over in his mind, a relentless loop of fear and adrenaline. He knew he would have to face his fears eventually, but for now, he was just grateful to be home. He was safe. He was home. But the feeling of dread didn't leave him. John knew he had been followed. He knew that whatever was out there was still out there, watching him, waiting for him.
The phone rang, making him jump. He stared at it, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't want to answer it, but something told him he had to. He slowly picked up the receiver, his hand trembling, as if it already knew the weight of the words that were about to come. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the old ceiling fan, and the air felt thick with an unspoken dread.
Hello? His voice was barely a whisper, a fragile sound that seemed to get lost in the vast emptiness of the room. He waited, the silence stretching out like an eternity.
A raspy voice sent chills down his spine, each word like a cold blade slicing through the air. It was a voice that seemed to come from the depths of a nightmare, a voice that carried with it the weight of countless untold horrors.
You shouldn't walk alone at night. The words were a sinister warning, a dark prophecy that seemed to echo in the corners of his mind. He could almost see the shadowy figure lurking in the distance, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. You never know what might be watching you. The voice continued, each syllable dripping with malice. He could feel the eyes on him, piercing through the darkness, watching his every move with a predatory intensity.
The line went dead, leaving him in a silence that was even more terrifying than the voice. It was a silence that seemed to swallow him whole, a silence that left him feeling utterly alone and vulnerable. John stood there, frozen in place, the phone still clutched in his hand. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened, but all he could feel was an overwhelming sense of dread. He didn't know who had called him, and that uncertainty gnawed at him like a relentless beast. The unknown number on the caller ID seemed to mock him, a cruel reminder of the mystery that now consumed him. He didn't know what they wanted, but the fear in their voice was unmistakable. It was a fear that mirrored his own, a fear that spoke of dangers lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. But he knew one thing. He knew that he couldn't let this fear control him, that he had to take action. He clenched his fist, a spark of determination igniting within him.
He would never walk home alone again.